Back to callers we go. G'day, Glenn.
Good morning. I just wanted to comment on Scott Morrison's Minister for Women's Safety. The ABS cites that last year more men were murdered than women, and also that of all murdered children, 46.8% were murdered by women. So this idea that violence in Australia is all men abusing women and children is completely false. And to me, Scott Morrison has just fallen for this feminist propaganda.
Well, he certainly, and his office, not just him, but he and his office certainly drew the conclusion that they better do something. Otherwise, the background noise from the left and the media and from left-leaning political organisations were going to drown out any chance he had of getting a message across. And to some extent, he might well be correct. But I have to tell you, Glenn, the idea that we have a Prime Minister for women is just off. I mean, surely the Prime Minister is for everyone.
Well, but we've had a Minister for Women and Girls for years and no Minister
for men
and boys.
Yeah.
But still we have extremists on the street chanting, screaming, swearing that Scott Morrison is a misogynist, running a patriarchy. It's absolute insanity.
He's never going to stop that, Glenn, is he? They will never be convinced ever in a million years. Yeah.
The people on that street are extremists, and this will not make them follow Scott Morrison. They'll say it's not enough.
So what would you have preferred him to do out of interest? I'm not being a smart aleck. I'm intrigued to know.
I think he should come out and say, no, we're not running a patriarchy. We have an office for women and girls. We have the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, which is, there to stop the gender pay gap, which is a myth for a start. But that's another thing that a patriarchy wouldn't do. Talk about all the anti-violence programs they've been doing. These people saying that, Australian women are in danger. Australian women are like the safest women on the planet. The ABS cites that for every 100,000 Australian women, 0.7 are murdered a year. The average worldwide is 6.2 per 100,000.
Can you say that again for me, mate? This is from the ABS, is it?
The ABS cites that for every 100,000 Australian women, 0.7 are murdered a year. The world average for men and women is 6.2. So that's what Scott should be saying, not cowering to these people and demoting men and promoting women and coming up with new officers for women's safety and task force. And this is, it's feminist madness.
And a Prime Minister for women, let's not forget.
Yeah, Prime Minister for women. I mean, if you're watching this overseas, you wouldn't believe this was a conservative right-winger. You would think this was a far-left person from the Greens Party.
Yeah, well, look, I agree. I agree. That's if you're looking from elsewhere and witnessing what was happening here, you would think that. Mind you, even though if he did make that point, see, he made a very valid point a couple of weeks ago. He said you can protest in this country and not get shot. Now, that is, that's true. That's one thing that we have.
How the protesters were wrong.
Say that again.
He didn't address the reasons why the protesters were wrong. They're saying that women aren't safe. The fact of the matter is there's nowhere in the world where women are more safe.
Yeah.
That's what he should have said.
Well, he might well have. I don't think he's ever going to win that argument. The noise of the left is going to drown it out. But I think he was entitled to say, it is pretty safe to protest here. There are a few things we should be thankful for. Of course, that was taken by the left and thrown back in his face. And then, of course, the usual suspects get behind it, the left of the body politic and the left-leaning media. And then it becomes a real thing where all he was doing, in my estimation, I don't know what your take is, but he was just stating fact.
Yeah. The thing that I found fascinating about the media's response was no one mentioned the signs of the patriarchy on it. No one mentioned patriarchy. Honestly, I reckon about half of the signs were about the patriarchy. And no sensible person believes that we are living in a patriarchy.
Yeah.
I think that's what he should have said, He should have given the reasons to why it's not a patriarchy. And, you're not going to convince the 5% of extremists, but the people in the middle and the average person he would have been able to convince.
Well, particularly if he had support of strong members of his cabinet. For example, the new Prime Minister or Prime Minister for Women has, and I think she's been a very effective foreign minister, but
Yeah.
she's been MIA, hasn't she, on this debate? I mean, if someone was going to come out and argue on behalf of the government, it might have been handy that it was a woman standing next to the PM saying, hello,
Yeah.
I'm part of this team, and what you're saying is not right.
Did you see her in Senate estimates when she was asked about her agency was asked about the gender pay gap?
No.
Her agency was asked, what is the gender workplace hours gap? And the agency leader, Libby Lyons, said they didn't have the resources to collect the data. Mind you, the data is on the ABS website. She knows exactly what the gap is, but she knows it will destroy her whole agency if it comes out. So she said, no, we don't have the resources to collect it.
Yeah.
Mind you, this agency got $6.6 million a year, and they can't get data that's on the ABS website.
Yeah, well, that says a lot about a lot of things, doesn't it?
It sure does.
All right, mate. Nice to talk to you, Glenn. Thank you for calling. And Glenn's not on his own. I can tell you that there are plenty of listeners, and I shouldn't make the assumption necessarily that Glenn is a conservative. It sounds like he might be. But there are plenty of conservatives listening to me thinking, what happened yesterday? Where did our conservative government go? Now, I'm sure there'll be plenty of fair-minded observers that will look on and say, well, what was he to do? Every day there's another invention aimed at discrediting anything he claims to have achieved on behalf of any Australian, let alone women. Some of it not all of the left's doing. I mean, Andrew Laming was a gift and a goose and one or two other things, I think it's fair to say. But I think people will look. You see, this is a fascinating debate. If you go a little bit left and you're a conservative government, where are your votes going to go? Now, I don't know the answer. I imagine as a protest, you go somewhere like, let's say, One Nation and then preference back. But the trouble is it doesn't work like that. I was absolutely gobsmacked to see that the One Nation vote doesn't even close to 100% come back to the coalition. Now, I would have thought it was not unreasonable to, describe One Nation as more conservative than progressive. I don't think there's anything revolutionary in that. Yet there is a significant proportion of One Nation voters who vote One Nation and then preference Labor. So, anyway, it's a fascinating conversation. It really is, and we might talk more about it as the week goes on. But I can tell you, just as Glenn has there, so too many others who think, PM, please argue your case. 131873, 21 after 1 after midnight in Queensland. G'day, Joel.
Good day there, Luke.